Men are the prize, the podcast. Thanks for coming back. Thanks for listening. Dexter Peggins is the guest this week. Mr. Peggins, how are you, sir?
Harvey, I'm doing well, my brother. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining. I appreciate it. Another good week. I like doing this podcast, but I have a bias. I like talking to my brothers. I like getting a black man on here so we can talk about things. I think our life, our questions, our discussion has a little nuance. I think it's a little bit different. So I always like doing it. I begin every episode the same way. I am just an expert at being me. That is as much skill, as much that I've been taught. This podcast was created so that men can be vocal and talk about whatever's going on. I know it, you know it. We're not built for that. Typically, we're not trained for that. We just grow up, rub some dirt on whatever issue, and we keep it moving. And that's not good for our psyche, for our health, for our family, for anything. So if you get nothing else from this podcast, talk. Find somebody to talk to, friend, neighbor, somebody who's trained, a psychotherapist, social worker, anybody who you can talk to. Don't hold in whatever pain or trauma you've dealt with. Get it out. The more you do that, the better you will be in life. So if nothing else, I hope this lights a fire and you find a person who you can talk to. And with that said, Mr. Peggins, are you ready?
Yes, sir. Let's do it.
Let's do it. So, like I said, I mentioned earlier, the guests are the people I love talking to. The listeners have already heard your bio, but if you had to give me a 20-second bio right now, somebody just walked up on the street, walked up to you, like, tell me about you real quick, what would you tell them?
Listen, I'm a simple man. I'm a man who loves people and wants to see everybody win. I'm a husband. I'm a father. A person of the community, I guess some people would say. But long story short, if I can make a difference, that's what I aim to do. So that's my narrative.
Excellent. That's good. All right, let's talk about it. So if you haven't listened before and this is the first time, the mantra that I came up with, it's based off of the word P.R.I.Z.E. 5 letters. I took 4 of the letters and used the letters to come up with some characteristics, some actions that are, that kind of shape what a good man should do. So we're going to talk about 4 of the letters. The middle letter is the end of that discussion. So we're going to start with the first letter. That's P. The word is purpose, a word that's important to you, Mr. Peggins, as I was looking into you. We'll talk about that. Reason for which something is done or created or for which something exists. So, sir, what is your purpose?
Harvey, man, you start off with a hard question.
You're going in, baby.
I think that's the question that trips up a lot of people, when they're aiming to discover their own what if or their own reason for being. But I'll simply say this, I'm in the wisdom business. I like to give solicited and unsolicited advice. And so, I'll just say that, I offer what I like to believe to be practical and life impacting wisdom for men looking to be better men, even in regards to what I believe we'll discuss today. As men, we're always working on being better, and a lot of that being better requires somebody else modeling what it is that we want to demonstrate in our own lives. And so, in efforts of being transparent, I hope that I am encouraging men to be better. In many regards, I feel like I've become a father figure to a lot of men. And so, day by day, I'm leaning more and learning more about my own purpose.
Excellent. So you said you give solicited and sometimes unsolicited advice?
Correct. I'm gonna give it to you.
Okay. So let me ask you about that. Do you ever get a negative response from offering unsolicited advice to a man?
Oh man, that's a good question. No, because by the time it gets to that point, there's a level of trust, and I think for at least in the circles that I do provide that kind of feedback to, they'll come back and say, you know what, I needed to hear that. I might not have wanted to hear it in the moment, but what you said was what was needed. So thank you for that. And so for the most part, it's always been well received, even the hard conversations, but through that development of trust, we're able to have those more difficult conversations.
Okay. So as a giver of that kind of advice, which at times I'm sure it's probably not the best thing to hear. I'm sure it hurts in the moment, but you appreciate it later. So allow me to ask, are you comfortable with that kind of advice given to you? Are you there now? Have you always been there? What's that kind of journey been for you?
No, listen, sometimes it's hard for me to be the recipient now. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm the one who gives the advice,
Right.
but no, I think where I'm at in life right now, because I don't want to waste a lot of time, I welcome those hard conversations, now, the expectation is, if you can be tactful, be exercise some tact in it, but no matter how hard the feedback may be, if it's beneficial, like I said, I welcome it. There was times in my life when I was younger where I would brush it off, and Harvey, is just one of those things, man. I'm in my 40s now. It's almost like you wake up one day, you be like, man, where did the time go?
Sir.
And in hindsight 2020, there was a lot of lessons that I think that if I had took the time when I was younger, I could only imagine where I would be mentally, financially, emotionally, right now. And so where I'm at in life right now, I definitely welcome that degree of feedback.
Youth is wasted on the young.
Facts.
Last question about this, because I find it interesting. So a lot of lessons, a lot of info that you kind of just give to people that you talk to.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to ask this about you in particular. If you had the choice between learning a hard lesson through action, through what you might have done in life, good or bad, would you prefer that? Or you in your younger days having a Dexter come to you and tell you what's about to go down and you should avoid this? Would you prefer the experience or would you prefer the advice beforehand?
Somebody once told me that how's the expression go? A wise person, how's it? You learn from a fool learns from the mistakes of others, but the wise learns from.
I know what you mean.
I'm messing up the whole thing right
It's
now.
cool. I know what you mean, though.
but to be honest, Harvey, I think, man, in all honesty, because I bang my head so much, I actually would prefer somebody to have come and talk to me when I was younger, because some of those headaches and those mistakes, why I can walk away and say, I learned a lot from them. Man, they hurt so much going through the process.
Yeah.
That, and truthfully, I don't know if, some of those things that I fully have even reconciled just, to this date. And to be honest, if somebody could have said, hey, you know what, this thing that you're doing, here's the pitfall. If you proceed, and them explaining that from a point of experience, I think I would have been more ready to receive it back then.
I like that question. I think it's interesting. How we deal with situations really kind of frames, it kind of makes the kind of person we are. So I feel like sometimes you need to go through some stuff.
Yeah.
Because it'll stick with you. Words are great, but kind of, scars might affect you more. So
yeah, it's a mixed bag now. Like I said, I could definitely, on the hindsight 2020, on the other side of it, I can say that I'm a better man. But like I said, I also, in that acknowledging that I'm a better man, I also know that I'm a more guarded man as well. And so I don't think I'm as open as maybe I once was because of those experiences. And so, I guess the tension between that is, yes, I've learned, but what did I lose in the process as far as who I am?
Okay. And with that, we move to the next letter. And the word P.R.I.Z.E, the letter is R, the word is resilience.
Hmm.
Resilience is defined as the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties, toughness. So we've all been through experiences. We men have all gone through stuff, things that we didn't plan for, things that we caused. Can you think of a situation, either young or now, that informed you of your resilience, maybe that you didn't know you already had? Something that happened that kind of forced you to deal.
Ooh, man, I got a few, I'm gonna exercise some discretion tonight, and
Okay.
I'll say this: there was a time several years ago when my wife and I, mainly because of my own foolishness, we were on the verge of foreclosure, repossession of several things, and I remember the weight of all of the collectors calling me, and it's almost like a panic attack, kicked in. But the reality was is that no matter how anxious I felt in the moment, that anxiety wasn't going to get the issue resolved. And I learned to be more strategic, in that season. It went from just talking about it to really being about it. And so I learned a lot about my own resiliency, my own capacity to make stuff happen. And so that was a trying season for sure. But on the other side of it, one of those you learn by trial by fire. I could say that we came out better. So
That's good. That's good. Um, Economics or just money in general is obviously, I'm a married man just like you,
mhm.
and that can always have a trying effect on a relationship. Obviously, I'm not sure if that's the number one cause of divorce, but I'm sure it's one of the
It's
higher.
up there.
So
Mhm.
it's a big one. So while this is going on, and we don't need to go in depth, this is more about how you were handling it. So while this is going on, and the weight of this guilt that you
Mhm.
had, what did you turn to when you were struggling? How did you get through it? What was your solace?
Man, that's good. And let me say this, I can attribute a lot of the weight and the pressure because we as men, a lot of our identity is rooted in our ability to provide. And so in essence, um, with the bill collectors coming and stuff like that, uh, subconsciously, or it was really attacking my sense of manhood,
Yeah.
that what I was doing or what had transpired was impacting my family. I'm a man of faith, and so prayer has always been a critical and a vital part of my life. And so, praying, but not just praying, but learning to really listen, whether it be meditation and stuff like that. I really learned to listen to, what I would call the inner witness, what my spirit was telling me, and of course I saw a lot of the errors. I think in that time, that meditative space of prayer, I was able to finally start to see the error in the mistakes that I was making. And then from that place of clarity, now I could actually format a plan. And that plan is what my wife and I were able to follow through with, and to get us through that time.
That's good. That's good. I typically ask this question after the whole prize question, but you kind of brought it up. One thing that I like to ask men is, how do you self-soothe? And
Mm.
what I mean by that is, what do you do when it's the weight? It's all of it. It's crashing down on you. How do you handle it? What do you do? What do you do to relax? So I feel like you kind of mentioned it, but if
Mhm.
you can reiterate, how do you self-soothe?
Yeah, definitely. So once again, yeah, I pray, I meditate. Uh, Contrary to what it might look like, I actually like to go run. That's one of those old army habits that still stick with me. I get out there. It's not as fast as it used to be, but I do get out there and do it. But I fish. But then one of the things that I probably won't be doing it. I haven't been doing it lately with these gas prices, but I actually like to drive around. I like to just look at different areas, and it's almost like progressive. Where I started from to where I'm at now. That helps me to have a better framework of whatever the issue is I'm dealing with, to look at it from a bigger scale and say, you know what, it's not as bad as you're making out to be in this moment.
Okay, cool. We skipped the I because we'll come back to that. The next letter in the word prize is Z. That stands for zeal, defined as enthusiastic devotion. So what are you enthusiastically devoted to?
My family, young people, helping men. One of the things that I've been fortunate enough to do was I started a nonprofit a couple of years ago working with at-risk youth. And it's almost like I'm having a conversation with a younger Dexter, in many regards, because, hey, listen, they're making a lot of the same mistakes I was making when I was younger, and so, while they are their own individual men and young men, it's still a lot of commonality. And much to what we were talking about earlier, would I have preferred to have had somebody older talk to me about the things I was doing? I get to be that voice of reason for a lot of these young men. And so I'm passionate about that. One of the things I personally believe is that as men, we have a responsibility to a community. It's up to you to define that community, but we should be giving back in some capacity. And so I find a lot of passion, a lot of energy in serving my family and as well as those young men.
Yeah, the way our conversation is going, a lot of questions that I kind of saved for the end, I feel like they kind of fit now. So you talk to a lot of men and you mentioned that you're somewhat of a father figure. Mm-hmm. One thing that I recognize through talking to a lot of men and just in general is that the reason we have such an issue talking about what's going on, aside from how we're raised, I'm Haitian, we're Caribbean, we'll talk about that, rub some dirt on it, move on, keep it going. But one thing that's kind of ingrained in us is that just deal with it.
Yeah.
My question for you is this. One of the reasons I think we don't do it is because we may not have someone. Do you have a number one, aside from family? So it can't be your wife, can't be your brother, can't be whomever. Do you have a person right now, if something went down, good or bad, you could call them, this is what happened, I need to get this off my chest, with no fear of reprisal, judgment, just somebody who you could just lay it out to and they will be there for you?
Man, that's a loaded question. So I'm gonna say yes. I believe I do. Here's the thing, and I'll be transparent. The challenge for me is being able to go that far. So a lot of people say, "Hey, you can trust me with this." It's hard for me to do that because I don't know how to do that. You get what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
And so. So I got, a tight core of friends. I have mentors in my life. I have a pastor as well. And so everybody's available. Is just my apprehension or inability to really be totally vulnerable. I can't, in all honesty, say I know what that looks like. And I think it's much to what you mentioned about the rub dirt on it and keep it moving. It was something that I never learned to do, and so it never felt like, I was given the opportunity to just share what I was feeling in a judgment-free environment. Everybody, my experience growing up was, if you shared something and it was contrary to what somebody else thought, they would shoot it down. And so what that taught me was to suppress what I was dealing with. And so now as an older man, I've tried to work through some stuff, but, to be 100% honest, I can't honestly say that I know what that looks like to lay it all on the table.
And it is a loaded question because there's layers to it. Yeah. One thing I've realized, being vulnerable is a beautiful thing, but having access to vulnerability, I think, is the bigger thing. you can get to the point where, you know what, I can lay it out and I can say it. But if I don't have a vessel, if I don't have that person that I can just lay it out with, then it's almost wasted. And then you feel like it's unnecessary because I've got all this and I want to talk to somebody, but I have no one. And I think that's an issue for a lot of men, which is ironic because we all need it, but we can't always be it for each other.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's just this constant battle. I want to talk, but I don't know who to talk to. Come on, you can talk to me, but I don't know you like that. It's amazing. It seems so simplistic because I think we're in this age now, especially in our community, where it's becoming more comfortable, it's not as taboo to say I have a therapist or to talk to, usually it's find your pastor, find the deacon, talk, you'll be fine. You don't need a psych. You're crazy. You talk to a psych. What? What's that? So to have somebody, a friend, like a friend, to talk about stuff, it's a big deal. And that's something we need to teach.
I mean, it is, I listen to some of the conversations my wife has with her girlfriends, and man, they hours just, man, it's almost like a therapy session, and for as close as me and some of my partners are, we don't go that deep. It's very, very broad. We're talking sports, we're talking, investments and stuff like that, but none of that real soul stuff. We don't scratch the surface on that. So, one of the things as an older man, and one of the things that I applaud a lot of our millennial brothers and younger, I feel like they have a better grasp on being willing to get that help and to be able to open up in that capacity. And I really do kind of envy that generation, because I feel like my generation and older, it was just taboo, like you mentioned, to the idea of a therapy. And oh man, you ain't got no issues, why you gonna go sit there and talk to some strange, all of that, the help that we've diminished the necessity in the value of mental health. And I'm really glad that it really seems like that tide is changing, and people are really to the point now where they know that it's a real need.
Right. Excellent. You talk to a lot of men, and like you mentioned, you're a father figure to a lot of them. Is there, and obviously every man is different, every situation is different, but with all the men or young men that you speak to, is there one or two particular issues that you are giving advice or talking to men about? Is there something that consistently comes up with these men that you're talking to?
A lot of father wounds, as far as identity, how they show up in the world. It manifests in trying to be overly, masculine or whatnot, because they, feel like they're having to compensate. What's another issue that I see quite often? It's little, like how to show up, be there for your family. If all of your examples disappear, it's going to be easy for you to take that attitude as well. Even this conversation tonight, being able to be transparent, a lot of men just don't know how to acknowledge their stuff, and so, me being able to say, hey, look, I struggle in talking about being transparent, but I know I need to work it out. That's for, I hope that this is an example and a pattern that other men can say, hey, you know what? I need to figure it out too, because it's not all good in the hood.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one of the things, because I started doing this, I'm kind of reading up articles, quotes, and all that stuff. And it's a lot of it's okay to not be okay and stuff like that, acknowledging just the struggle of just being. It's hard.
It is, and a lot of us brothers, let's be honest, I'll say this, another thing is balance, how to balance that. To acknowledge, yes, something's going on. A lot of us just lean into get it done. But what do you do with that stuff that has been weighing you down for a long time. That still needs to be addressed, and so I'm trying not to be a walking contradiction, because I feel like I'm talking to myself right now, but it's real. In acknowledging my own issues, I see my stuff in other men, and I'm just, we try to have that conversation as best as we can.
What did a young Dexter want to do? So teen, young, 12, 13, what were your aspirations growing up? What was the job, the career, the thing that was going to make you happy? What did you want to do?
And honestly, I wanted to be a rapper, but
okay.
Yeah, but like they got shot down so fast,
That mixtape didn't work out, brother.
No, hey, listen. Hey, I had bars, man, but
okay.
just people, older, family members and stuff telling me, hey, you can't make a career out of that. There's no future in that. Suppressing the dream in essence. What I see, the irony is that, whether I made it as a musician or not, I see what I do now as a career, and the opportunities that have been made available. I can see the connection with music. I'm not rapping, but I do speak, and so maybe I didn't understand the context of what I was doing, the framework. Maybe music was just the catalyst to get me comfortable with getting in front of audiences and stuff. But as a young man, I definitely wanted to be an MC.
Okay. All right. So you grew up, you had an idea, this is what you wanted to do, and we're young, and I know I went through a bunch of different things I wanted to do. And, we start one way and we end up somewhere completely different. You never know. That leads into the last letter in the word prize. That is E. The word is expectation. So expectation is a strong belief that something will happen or be the case in the future. So young, you want to be a rapper. Now, older man, when you see you're living life now, but as you look into the future, if you can tell me what you expect of yourself in 1 year, in 5 years, and in 10 years, what is Dexter going to be doing in those timeframes?
Within the next 5 years, want to grow out our nonprofit. Wanted to be recognized as a regional leader in mentoring services for at-risk youth. Maybe we can partner with some maybe state initiatives. Who knows? Maybe even on the national level. Within 10 years, I actually want to run for office, maybe on the state level as maybe a senator. But yeah, that's kind of the game. I won't say the game, but the goal right now. I believe once again that I have a responsibility to serve, and so I want to do that in the capacity that I think that I can best do that in policy and just leading, setting the example and the tone. And so that's the plan.
Okay. Why should you lead? Why do you have the responsibility
to lead? As crazy as this might sound, man, Harvey, man, you pulling on the question there. I'll say this, that I feel like a God calling to do it. I won't even say I feel, I know that it's a God call to do it. Because if I'm not doing it, I almost feel like everything is out of whack. I don't feel my personal balance if I'm not doing it. And so, but when I'm doing it, I feel like everything in my life is aligned and in tune. And so that's really what it is. It feels like I'm being my truest self when I'm in that capacity.
Okay, I like that. The fact that it seems like it's almost natural to you to help people. That's like what you put on this earth to do. And there's a lot of people who help, and then there's a few people who are meant to help. And
Yeah.
it seems like it's obvious that you're here. That's what you're meant to do. So I applaud you for being that man because we need them.
Appreciate it, bro.
Now, so the last letter in the word prize, it is I. And it doesn't stand for anything specific, but it really reflects the man. We talk about purpose, resilience, zeal, and expectation. Now with you, Dexter, we take off the titles. So you're not a father, husband, employee, pastor, speaker, neighbor, anything. So we get to brass tacks. It's just you at your core, nothing else. Who are you?
Man, I'm a leader. I am man, I'm just a man who wants to help people win and overcome what ifs, and at my core, that's what it is, in any room, whether I'm quiet or talking, it always seems like that gets pulled out. And so I am a leader, and I acknowledge that and I accept that.
That's good. That's good. We get a calling and it's our job to take it. It's clear that you have. So thank you for answering the questions in the prize mantra. I appreciate that. I got a few more questions to throw at you to kind of
bring them on, Harvey.
Let's do it. I'm feeling you look good. I ain't see you beat a sweat either. You look good, brother.
Hey, man, appreciate it. Cool under fire, my friend.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
First question. What are you afraid of that you cannot control?
What am I afraid of that I cannot control? This might sound crazy, but I feel like I'm afraid to disappoint God, but I think I can control that. But it's just I'm afraid that I'm not going to exhaust all my gifts before I transition. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that. Okay. All right. Other side of that coin, and you might have given it already, but what are you afraid of that you can control?
Yeah, that
That's pretty much it.
Yeah, I mean, because the thing is, there's this fear that maybe it's my efforts or might be misunderstood, and then for that reason, I might want to scale back. But the reality is that if I scale back, then I'm choosing not to be myself. And so there's that, always that internal battle of, am I really doing everything that I can and that I know to do? And within that framework, you have to be honest with yourself. And then sometimes in that honesty, I know that I can do more. It's just for whatever reason I haven't.
Does that drive you?
It does.
I think that's important. If you were ever, while content with what you're doing, could you really do the job?
No, listen, my wiring, I'm the most analytical person I know. I'm the most critical of myself person that I know. And so it's always that I could have done more, and man, it's almost like some days I wish I wasn't that way, but this is all I know.
Okay, I like that. All right. What's the best advice that a man gave you growing up?
Be patient with yourself. Yeah, which obviously I probably haven't listened. I haven't really took that message to heart just yet, but it was be patient with yourself.
What's the worst advice somebody gave you growing up?
Worst advice that somebody gave me, to sow my wild oats. Yeah, yeah.
I had a feeling you would have something to do with the ladies. I figured something that some other person saying, do this, do that. Yeah. That's usually the way.
Yeah.
And my last question in this, and because this is somewhat of what you do, but I have an 18-year-old son.
Mm.
Just kind of few weeks, he just turned 18. So technically he's a man, but he's 18. He's not even close. He's still got a lot to learn.
Yeah.
18-year-old man, kind of about to hit the world, do his thing. One piece of advice that you could give to a young man growing up in the world that we live in now, in this kind of culture that we're living in now, in particular, because brothers, what one good piece of advice would you give a Black boy growing up now?
One of the things I would say is live courageously, be a student, live courageously, meaning don't be afraid to be yourself. You know, I think for the most part, we as men, it seems like it takes a very long time for us to get to this place of comfort in being yourself. But be courageous. You know, there's only one you. But be a student as well. Sometimes it's okay to acknowledge that you might not be the smartest person, that there is seasons and times where you just need to be more of an observer than the orator. And so in being a student of the world, you'll know how to navigate that world that you want to be a part of. And so I think those two things right there be very helpful. And then once again, as a person of faith, trust God. And in doing that, the sky is literally, I won't even say the sky's the limit. You know, I think all things are possible if you put those three things into operation.
Excellent. I appreciate your time. It was nice to just crack open
and
have a brother and talk. Where can our listeners find you, talk to you, tell us your social media, your website, anything that's going on? Let us in on everything.
Well, Harvey, I want to say thank you once again for having me. This wasn't as hard as I was a little concerned. I said, Harvey, gonna hit me with the sledgehammer. But no, if you want to contact me, it's really simple. Dexter Peggins Jr. That's DexterPeggins Jr. You can find me on all platforms under that name. That's Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Really simple. And also my website is www.dexterpegginsjr.com. So it's really simple.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much for the talk. It was easy because this is only part one. I'm gonna get for part two, and then I bring out the real questions.
Big gun.
There we go. I love a good quote. I begin. So the listeners have heard one to begin, and I like quotes, so I like to end one. And I try to find one that I think hopefully will fit who I'm speaking to. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Here's what I found for you, and it comes from one of my sisters. I did then what I knew how to do. Now that I know better, I do better.
I like it.
That's Maya Angelou.
I like it. I can dig it
too. It felt good.
Yeah.
It represented our struggle, and it came from Maya, so it can't be wrong. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you to the listeners for listening to the Man of the Prize podcast, where your inner monologue is revealed. It's been a pleasure. Talk to you soon. Have a good one.